Willow Ridge was the kind of neighborhood where perfection wasn't just encouraged, it was enforced. Manicured lawns, identical mailboxes, and smiling faces that never quite reached the eyes. On the surface, it was a dream community. But underneath, it was a tightly wound clock run by one person, Karen Preston. Karen wasn't just the HOA president. She was the self-declared guardian of order. A woman in her mid-50s with a razor-sharp bob and a clipboard permanently affixed to her hand, Karen roamed the neighborhood like a hawk in pearls. She'd been re-elected 6 times, not because she was loved, but because no one dared oppose her. Challenging Karen meant inviting war. I didn't move here to make enemies. I was looking for stability for me and for my daughter, Mia. After my divorce and the sudden death of my father, I wanted a clean slate, and Willow Ridge seemed like a safe bet. Quiet streets, a good school down the road, and most importantly, a house with something rare in this neighborhood, an Olympic-length backyard pool. It wasn't just a luxury. Mia was a rising star in synchronized swimming, training for regional qualifiers. That pool was more than water. It was her sanctuary, her stage, and our shared escape from the mess we'd left behind. Our first 2 months were uneventful. A few passive-aggressive notes on my door, something about my garden gnome not being aesthetically aligned with community standards, but nothing I couldn't ignore. I kept my lawn trimmed, my garbage bins hidden, and my head down. That changed one morning when I found Karen in my backyard, standing beside the pool, like she owned the place. "How did you even get in here?" I asked, clutching a steaming mug of coffee. She didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the water, her lips pursed tight enough to crush diamonds. "This monstrosity," she hissed. "It reflects sunlight directly into my backyard. Do you have any idea what that does to a professional camera lens?" "Camera lens?" I blinked, still shaking off sleep. "For the wedding," she snapped. "My daughter's wedding. This Saturday. We're hosting the ceremony on our patio. And thanks to your pool, my entire bridal arch looks like it's glowing like a radioactive jellyfish in photos." I didn't realize. "You should have realized," she cut in. "You're supposed to submit any changes that could impact neighboring properties. That's in the handbook." "This pool's been here for 10 years, I said. "Previous owner installed it with permits." I checked. "That may be," she said, voice tightening like a vice, "but I'm telling you now, it's a problem. So fix it. Drain it, cover it, do something. Otherwise, the HOA will be forced to act." She turned on her heel and marched out, not even bothering to close the gate behind her. The next day, a notice arrived. I was being fined $250 per day for unauthorized reflective surfaces. That same afternoon, a second letter showed up, accusing me of creating an environmental disturbance through excessive water exposure. I stared at the papers, stunned. This wasn't just a neighborly complaint. This was a calculated strike. That night, Mia found me sitting at the edge of the pool, the letters in one hand and a cold drink in the other. "Did we do something wrong?" she asked. "No, sweetheart," I said, putting an arm around her. "We just didn't bow to the queen." She didn't laugh. She rarely did when it came to her training. At 14, Mia was laser-focused. Every stroke, every breath was a step toward her dream of competing nationally. And this pool, the one Karen wanted covered up or drained, was her only place to prepare. "I can train in the school's pool," she offered, though her voice betrayed her disappointment. "No. This is your pool," I said firmly. "And no one's taking that from you." Karen's threat wasn't about sunlight or camera lenses. It was about control. She wanted compliance, not conversation. And she'd chosen the wrong man to push around. I looked out at the moonlight shimmering over the water and felt something shift. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was the quiet realization that standing your ground sometimes meant making waves. Karen Preston had drawn the line. I was about to step over it. The fines didn't stop. By Thursday morning, the running total had crossed $1,000. Every envelope from the HOA arrived like a fresh insult. Cold, legal, and absurd. Karen had weaponized the system, and I was bleeding by the day. I considered lawyer ing up, but something told me that was exactly what she wanted. A courtroom battle would cost me time, money, and peace, and Karen would delight in dragging it out. She didn't just crave obedience. She needed public submission. I needed a better strategy. I dug into the HOA bylaws, an inch-thick manual of regulations printed in size 10 font and written in the kind of language designed to confuse rather than clarify. I read until my eyes ached, highlighting every line that remotely touched on pools, reflections, noise ordinances, and sunlight angles. There was no clause requiring me to drain a pool. No mention of reflections or photography hazards. The closest thing I found was a rule about exterior water features not causing damage or nuisance to neighboring properties.
Vague.
Conveniently vague. Mia came home that afternoon, shoulders slumped, hair dripping from her school's swim practice. Coach said if we don't lock in a regular space, we might lose team training before regionals. That hit harder than I expected. I'd kept calm for her sake, but now it was affecting her dream, something she'd built herself, lap by grueling lap. I stared out at our pool, glinting harmlessly under the fading sun, and made a decision. Karen wanted a problem solved. I'd give her something she couldn't ignore. The next morning, I posted in our private Willow Ridge resin forum. This Saturday at 4 p.m., my daughter's synchronized swim team will be holding an open rehearsal at our home. Community members welcome to attend. Chairs provided. Bring lemonade. The responses came fast. Most were supportive, a few confused, one from a neighbor I hadn't met. Love this idea. My grandkids swim. They'll be thrilled. But buried in the thread was Karen's response. This is inappropriate. HOA events must be approved. Please cancel. I didn't reply. By Friday, she escalated. I answered a knock to find 2 HOA board members standing on my porch, Mark Henderson and Tina Wu, Karen's most loyal lieutenants. Can we speak with you for a moment? Mark asked, already stepping inside. Sure, I said, closing the door behind them. You're here about the rehearsal. Tina nodded. Karen believes it's a direct interference with her daughter's wedding. She's mistaken, I said. The rehearsal is on my private property during daylight hours under the noise threshold. And it's not an event. It's training. Mark's expression flickered. You understand she's concerned about the optics. You mean the optics of me not rolling over? I shot back. He cleared his throat. We're trying to keep things amicable. This neighborhood thrives on cooperation. Is that what we're calling this now? Cooperation? Tina shifted uncomfortably. Look, maybe there's a compromise. You delay rehearsal until after the ceremony. I might have considered that, I said. Before she started racking up daily fines and threatening legal action. They looked at each other, then back at me. We'll inform her, Mark said, defeated. As they left, I caught Karen standing across the street, arms crossed, watching. She didn't wave. Neither did I. Saturday arrived like a drumroll. Chairs lined our backyard. A portable speaker system sat beside the pool. Mia and 11 of her teammates arrived just after 3, all in matching blue swimsuits, hair tied up in sleek buns. They were nervous but excited. This was more than practice. It was a stand. By 3:45, people started showing up. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to beyond polite nods brought folding chairs and iced tea. Kids settled cross-legged near the edge. Even Mr. Lanning, the retired veteran 3 doors down, brought binoculars for a better view, he claimed. At exactly 4 o'clock, the music began. Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, reimagined with a vibrant tempo, echoed across the yards. The girls dove in. The synchronization was mesmerizing, precise, fluid, poetic. Legs rose from the water in perfect harmony, then sliced down in shimmering arcs. Water danced with them, catching the sun like glitter. And then I saw her, Karen, standing at the far corner of her yard, next to her flower-wrapped wedding arch, fuming. A photographer hovered nearby, frozen, clearly unsure what to do. She hadn't said a word, but her silence screamed. And this was just the beginning. The applause at the end of the rehearsal echoed louder than I'd expected. People clapped, whistled, even stood. Mia climbed out of the pool, smiling, not just from pride, but from something deeper. She felt seen. Karen, meanwhile, had disappeared. For a moment, I let myself believe the worst was over. But by sundown, the storm hit. A formal violation notice was taped to my front door. Unauthorized public gathering. Multiple code violations. Subject to emergency board review. It was signed, of course, by Karen Preston. That night, Mia and I ate dinner on the patio, the pool still rippling under the deck lights. She picked at her food. "Did I ruin her wedding?" she asked suddenly. "No," I said. "You saved something more important." She didn't respond, but her shoulders relaxed. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Karen had flooded the HOA forum with accusations. Photos of the swim team. Claims of dangerous crowding, unsanctioned performances, and, absurdly, auditory distress during a sacred ceremony. She even uploaded a blurry picture of the audience with a caption, "Is this the community we want?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Neighbors jumped in. One woman posted, "That was the most joy I've seen here in 5 years." Others chimed in. "We were told we'd be fined for smiling too loudly next, and, Karen, it was water, not an earthquake." Still, the board meeting was scheduled. Wednesday night, 7 p.m., at the community hall. Mandatory attendance for both parties. By then, Karen had whipped her loyalists into a frenzy. Yard signs started popping up. "Protect our neighborhood, stop unauthorized events." The phrase unauthorized had become her war cry. But I wasn't showing up alone. The Synchronized swim team came with me, every last one of them. Mia led the group, wearing her competition jacket, chin high. Parents followed behind. So did several neighbors, some out of curiosity, others out of quiet defiance. The meeting hall was packed. Karen stood at the podium, flanked by Mark and Tina, the board looking rattled but determined. She wore a cream pantsuit and a tight-lipped smile. Her daughter, freshly married, sat near the front, arms crossed like a mirror image of her mother. "We're here tonight," Karen began, "because a line was crossed. Not just by one homeowner, but by a blatant disregard for protocol, order, and the community standards that make Willow Ridge what it is." She turned to face me. "Mr. Langley hosted a disruptive event without approval. It interfered with a private wedding ceremony. It jeopardized property values and violated numerous HOA codes." Tina cleared her throat. "To clarify, the board will hear statements before determining penalties or adjustments to community guidelines." Karen nodded, then extended her hand toward me. "Your turn." I stepped to the mic. The room quieted. "I moved here for peace. I followed the rules. Paid my dues. Never complained when the mailbox paint was too off-white or when my daughter's sidewalk chalk was labeled graffiti." A few people chuckled. Karen's lips thinned. "But then I was fined for sunlight, for water, for letting my daughter train in our backyard pool. And when that wasn't enough, I was accused of ruining a wedding that took place across property lines without a permit and, by the way, was not pre-approved by the board either." Karen flinched. I turned to the crowd. "What we did last weekend wasn't a rebellion. It was a rehearsal, a moment of joy. And I'm not the only one who thought so." I stepped back. Then something unexpected happened. Mr. Lanning stood up. "I fought 2 tours," he said, voice gravelly. "Seen real threats. A bunch of kids swimming isn't one of them. That practice was the first time I saw this neighborhood smile." Another neighbor stood. Then another. One by one, they voiced support. Even the local realtor spoke, saying the swim rehearsal actually brought positive attention to the community. Karen's face darkened with each word. When the room finally quieted, Mark called a private board huddle. Whispers passed behind raised hands. Karen argued with Tina in low, furious tones. Then Mark returned to the mic. "The board has reached a decision. All fines issued to Mr. Langley will be rescinded. No code violations were found. Furthermore, we will be reviewing the bylaws regarding personal gatherings and community space usage." Karen's jaw clenched. She didn't speak. But I wasn't finished. "One more thing," I said, stepping up once more. The team qualified for the state championship. We'll be holding a community send-off. Everyone's invited. The room erupted in applause. Karen stood, hands balled into fists. And for the first time since I moved in, I saw her lose. The send-off was more than just a celebration, it was a statement. Lawn chairs filled the yard. Banners waved on every side of the fence, most homemade. Go Mia! Swan Queens of Willow Ridge. Someone even brought a snow cone machine, which attracted more adults than kids. What started as resistance had transformed into community. Neighbors who barely nodded at one another were now trading stories over lemonade and popsicles. I overheard one man say, "Feels like the neighborhood finally exhaled." The swim team performed one final routine before the championship. This time, it wasn't rehearsal, it was art. Set to cinematic orchestration, their synchronized movements cast shimmering patterns in the water as the sun dipped low. People clapped in rhythm. Some filmed. Some cried. And Karen? She watched from her upstairs window, blinds pulled slightly apart. 2 days later, her resignation was posted on the HOA forum. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as HOA President. I hope Willow Ridge continues to thrive under new, responsible leadership. No ceremony. No explanation. Rumors flew. Some said her daughter refused to speak to her since the incident. Others claimed the HOA board had privately asked her to leave before things turned uglier. I didn't care for the specifics. All I knew was that the tyrant had abdicated her self-built throne. But she wasn't gone. Not completely. I still caught glimpses of her walking her dog early in the morning, avoiding eye contact, moving briskly past yards filled with laughter she used to police. The power she wielded like a gavel had vanished. She was just another homeowner now, just another neighbor with a clipboard no one feared. At the state championship, Mia's team took silver. When they returned, the whole block turned out to cheer. Someone, probably Mr. Lanning, set off a small fountain firework in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Mia beamed, medal around her neck, hoisted onto my shoulders like she'd just won gold. That night, I sat beside the pool, feet dangling into the cool water. It shimmered under the porch light, calm and clear. Mia plopped down beside me, towel around her shoulders. "You think she hates us?" she asked. I shook my head. "She doesn't hate us. She hates losing." We sat in silence, watching the ripple of light on water, the way it danced across tiles like it had a mind of its own. I thought about how close I'd come to draining the pool, to surrendering for the sake of peace. But peace earned through silence isn't peace, it's surrender. And surrender was exactly what Karen had built her kingdom on. Not anymore. Weeks passed. The new HOA board, now led by Tina, who'd evidently grown a spine, proposed revisions to the bylaws. They introduced community-led event policies, including official recognition of Mia's swim team as Willow Ridge ambassadors. At the next board meeting, they unveiled a new initiative, a summer youth program for arts and athletics, hosted by residents. Mia was offered the role of junior coach for the upcoming season. She said yes, without hesitation. That night, as we walked home under a sky scattered with stars, she looked up and said, "We're not just neighbors anymore, are we?" I smiled. "No. We're a team." Karen's legacy didn't disappear overnight. Some of her loyalists still grumbled about chaos and tradition, but they were fewer now and quieter. And when they tried to push back on the new community spirit, they found themselves facing more than just me. They faced the very neighbors they'd once silenced. The power Karen once held had scattered, redistributed among the people she tried to control. The real irony? It wasn't my pool that ruined her wedding. It was her reflection in it. It showed everyone who she truly was. And once they saw her clearly, they never looked at her the same way again.